There is going to be a class on the public history of the American Revolution through the Patreon page of Tad Sturmer called Revolutionary Truths. Public historians, as I've seen so far, do touch on the relationship between gaming and historical knowledge. I believe it would be of value to the public history community, and especially the public history of the American Revolution community, to see how gaming deals with this period. The role of gaming in generating historical knowledge is a legitimate subject of debate and discussion. Several books and videos and articles and blogs have covered the subject. But what we're going to do now, here in this video, is to look specifically at how PC gaming deals with the American Revolution. What I have up here, for those who don't know, is a digital storefront called Steam. A digital storefront is you download a executable for your computer, and that is how you get access. You can purchase PC games. This was developed in the late 2000s. Beforehand, you'd actually go to a computer store and purchase a disc, it's usually a disc, and install it. Whereas in the late 2000s, this company named Valve developed this digital storefront, and it has been extremely successful. If you are looking to download Steam for yourselves, you can do it here. steampowered.com. Now, there are tons of history games out there. Probably the most common setting is World War II. There has been, over the past, since 2014, a greater interest in World War I as a setting. But let's focus specifically on the American Revolution here. In my rather large, lifelong catalog, I've picked 12 games that specifically focus on the Revolutionary period. It's not the most common, but perhaps that will change. The most recent of these games is Ultimate General American Revolution. The company that makes the Ultimate General series, it actually started as a modder, and I'll talk about what he mods later on. But this game is called a AAA game. It's full price, $70. Most games on Steam are much cheaper, especially older ones. But what are called AAA games are games with high cost, high settings. But that doesn't necessarily correlate to interesting gameplay or game design. Speaking personally, I was very impressed with their earlier entries, Ultimate General American Revolution. Ultimate General Civil War. What this game does, however, Ultimate General Civil War has you build and develop your armies through various battles. But these battles, they're connected linearly, but not on a war map. So you have tactics and logistics of managing an army, but not the grand strategy of placing that army within a geography. That is what this game tries to show. Let's open it up. Takes a while to load because this is a big, fancy, expensive game. And I don't know why it's taking so long. It's launching. Install script. I thought I already installed it. Okay. Do-do. Well, that took a while to load. That's what a AAA game is. They're big, they're system intensive. So this is Ultimate General Revolution. I'm going to start a new campaign.
Every person is born to do something great. Every day they have a choice to take a step closer to their destination or to run away.
So this is how it begins. You can choose which side of the War of Independence you want to be on. Let's start with the Americans. I was born a successful plantation owner in America.
I was the first child in the family.
George Washington, yeah.
As the eldest child, I took on much of the responsibility for my younger brothers and sisters.
I'm just going to click through the opening of the campaign so you see.
At the age of 11, I lost my father, and the responsibility for all family affairs passed to me. Plantation management and financial matters became part of my daily routine.
Yeah, they're not really talking about the whole slavery thing. Help my workers accomplish their tasks, okay.
I spent my adolescence studying and managing the family's plantation. My mentor and older half-brother, my father to me, died during our trip to Barbados. His loss affected me greatly. At the age of 20, I was appointed commander of the Virginia militia, in part due to my organizational talents. Tensions over control of the Ohio River Valley eventually sparked the French and Indian War. I was able to apply my skilled management to help prepare my troops. We fought well, capturing several French forts, and in spite of some setbacks, we succeeded in driving out the French. My attempts to secure a commission in the army were thwarted by English officers with little respect for my abilities, so I decided to resign. My next steps were...
Let's see.
Afterwards, I ran for and was elected to the Virginia House of Burgesses. In 1774, I was elected as a delegate to the First Continental Congress in Philadelphia. There I helped secure. Tensions with England have reached a breaking point. In the near future, a confrontation will break out, and I will have to use all my experience to fight for the independence of the colonies.
Okay, and here is your character. So yeah, this obviously indulges quite a bit in the patriot myth. Alright. So we're not really going to play through that much of it. But I just want to show you what the gameplay is like. You move your armies around a map and you manage your armies. And personally, I found this all quite overwhelming. I think, again, I loved Ultimate General Civil War, but this seems to get in its own way. But what I want to show you now, yes, and, is the opening to the British campaign.
Every person is born to do something great. Every day they have a choice to take a step closer to their destination or to run away. I was the fourth child in the family.
Oh, William Howe, okay.
My family was close to the king, and this afforded me the great privilege. As the youngest in the family, my three older brothers have always supported and looked after me. I followed the successful military careers of my brothers with great interest, After finishing school, I decided to follow in their footsteps and joined the army. My father purchased a commission for me as a dragoon officer in time for the War of Austrian Succession, where I served mainly in Flanders. Later, my military service brought me to North America. There, the army was tasked with capturing all of French Canada. I was given command of a battalion of light infantry during the siege of Quebec.
Alright.
Within a year, I had gained command of the regiment and performed well in the Battle of St. Foy. Unfortunately, the war took away my closest brother and best friend. But this did not break me, and a year later, I commanded a brigade in the Montreal campaign. Having shown my talent as a commander in many battles, I was promoted to the rank of general. After the war, I returned to England, where I was involved in the development of the army and taught at the Royal Military Academy. My rank and birthright secured me a seat in Parliament. On questions related to the American colonies, I have always...
See, here's what's interesting.
While I advocated for moderate treatment of the colonies, unfortunately, the situation got out of hand. I must fulfill my duty to England and the King to restore order in the American colonies.
Alright, that's Henry Clinton, I think, there. I don't know who that is. That's Howe's a base. Kind of Cornwallis. Okay. So... See, I tried the American campaign for a bit, and it just didn't do it for me. I gotta give this campaign a try, maybe later on. It's loading. Here's my force. Got all the regiments. Gotta bring them to... How do I do this? Select. Oh, man. I don't even know what to do here. See, this is why I find this all so confusing. Let me try. There we go. Select. No, and you're going to Boston. Okay, well. So here's a little bit of Ultimate General American Revolution. You got battles and everything. All right, let me try one more time. You know, I select, I right click, and nothing happens. Let me see. Maybe. Nope. What is this? No. What? Okay, so yeah, this is Ultimate General American Revolution. Jeez. Okay. So I just want to show you that, you know. I was really excited for it, but ultimately disappointed. But at least does it challenge the Patriot myth? Maybe a little bit. Now let's move on to a game that most people who are into military history games know quite well, Total War. Empire Total War focuses on the 18th century, where you lead an empire and you command battles. And this was actually what made me, and I'm sure a lot of other people, get Steam in the first place. It was the first in the Total War series to be integrated with Steam. So it's pretty old. Let's take a look at the intro video. red ship of the line there. This was the first game to have naval warfare, which I guess made sense. This is obviously a 19th century uniform. Like this give the player a chance to feel command. It's ultimately a power fantasy, but the fact that it's set in various times and places changes things around a bit. It doesn't really criticize its own systems. And most intros to games like this are quite similar. Videos. Boom, boom, boom. Here's what your armies, navies, and nations do. This style was very popular in the 2000s, but it seems to have fallen out of fashion now. This is Empire Total War. And so, where you command 18th century armies. And I want to show you what the tutorial campaign is, which is basically the Patriot myth personified. Let's take a look at the intro video. Now, Creative Assembly is a British company.
Our British tyranny begins tonight. In Boston, brave men fight for the right to govern themselves. Tonight, we fight for freedom.
That's a gold leaf on wash over there.
As I bear witness to the sacrifice of this generation, I take great comfort in the memory of our forefathers. Those pioneering men who traveled to these shores seeking a new life. Like the intrepid Captain John Smith and his fellow settlers.
Oh, man.
We too seek a new world. Not only for ourselves, but for future generations of Americans. As I look back on their endeavors, at the unknown dangers that await the pioneers over every rise and behind every tree.
Oh, man.
I am reminded that I play but a small part in a much greater story.
Let's see the battle.
Ready yourselves, men! Fire! Stay behind cover, men! They're charging again! Steady! Hold the line!
Yeah, this hasn't aged very well. There's a way you can make it look nicer.
Retreat!
That music is sure Orientalist.
Watch the trees, men! On the right!
So when it was released, Empire Total War was pretty disappointing. Gamers were, ever since Age of Empires 2, back in the late 90s, gamers wanted to see more recent historical events depicted. And not just World War II, but the early modern period. Buckshot and bayonets and powder and all that. And it wasn't that much of it. So Empire Total War filled a niche that wasn't that well filled. Battle, there we go. Okay. Chesapeake, not Powhatan, okay. Exit. Wait for it to load. Yeah, this is kind of hard to watch.
From the very beginning, there have been hardships, irreplaceable losses. Brothers, fathers, sons lost to war, famine, and disease. And yet our forefathers endured, refusing to give up on the one thing they all believed in so fervently: freedom. Those brave men built a future from an inhospitable land, taming it and making it their own. The wild land was not the only threat. The natives were a constant menace, lurking at their borders, always ready for battle. It became obvious that until borders were clearly established, peace would continue to be elusive.
You must lead the early settlers to establish Jamestown as a safe and prosperous settlement in this dangerous new world. From time to time, the British government will issue various missions to perform.
Britain
As you
wasn't even a
complete
thing
these missions,
yet.
the wealth and security of Jamestown will improve, and your influence throughout the whole of the new world will expand. Having survived the immediate threat posed by the native tribes, your settlers have already gained valuable combat experience.
So, the point of this part of the game, it's just a tutorial. Instead of running a big empire...
The highlighted area represents the extent to which this army can move this turn. Right-click within this area to move your army to that location.
So the point of all
This is
that...
Jamestown, the capital of the region of Virginia. The review panel at the bottom of the screen contains a recruitment tab and a construction tab. Use the recruitment tab to recruit units for your armies.
So yeah, this is more of a tutorial to the game. I'm going to quit now. Back to main menu. And yeah, all this kind of Patriot Myth stuff is kind of exhausting. And let me just show you what the rest of the campaign is like, which you have to play through every one. Episode 2 is about the 7 Years' War. Episode 3 is about the War of Independence. And then Episode 4 is where you play as the United States in a standard game of Empire Total War. What most modders do is they just put the United States into the Grand Campaign as a selectable country. And let me tell you what I mean. So this is the Grand Campaign. And here's where we get what's really interesting. And this is why I'm broadly supportive of the historical strategy game as an art form, and especially as a tool to encourage empathy. Why? Because you can choose your country. It sounds so simple and obvious, But by nature of its very form, you can essentially encourage empathy because you play someone else. You literally get a different perspective. You can be the British, the French, the Austrians, the Dutch, the Spanish, the Prussians, the Poles, the Turks, the Russians, the Swedes, and yet they've even got India in there. Let's see what happens when you, instead of playing as a European power, like one of these. Oh, and I guess the Ottomans, are they European? I don't know. Russia, I don't know. But nope, we're going to play as an Indian power, the Maratha Confederacy.
Your time has come. The once powerful Mughal Empire is crumbling. Now the Maratha kingdoms must unite and rise against their oppressors. As such, your priorities should be to begin pushing northwards into Mughal territory. Although the majority of the population is Hindu, their Muslim rulers will be trying to convert as many people as possible across the land. Prevent large-scale conversions by assassinating their imam teachers if you can. Sending Thuggees to their cities will give you intelligence about Mughal forces. European powers have begun to show interest in India for the trade wealth they know they can obtain. The Portuguese and Dutch already have a foothold on Indian soil, and the British and French are close behind them. It may be prudent to maintain trade with foreigners, to ally with one or the other for mutual benefit, or to drive them out of your lands altogether. In the latter case, it would be sensible to develop trade capabilities and technological research of your own.
Let's just show what it's like to actually lead a country. You can choose your governors, set tax rates, trade, diplomacy with all the powers of the world. You could theoretically trade with the North American nations, but they have to have a trade route. What makes Empire Total War specifically so interesting is the map is so large. You get India and Europe and North America, as well as various parts of the world trade nodes for your navy, which is very valuable. And apparently, in many games in the series, many games people play, the Maratha actually get very powerful and can project all over the world. That's never happened in my games, but I'm just not very good at Empire Total War anyway. There's one more thing I want to show you. Go back to the main menu. Come on. There's another campaign called the Warpath Campaign, where you can play as the various native nations, the Haudenosaunee, the Huron, call them Algonquin, but they're not. The people of the plains, well, that's interesting. The Pueblo. Oh, that's cool. And the Cherokee. I'll be honest with you, I've never actually played with any of these guys. But maybe I should give it a shot. Let's see what the Haudenosaunee are doing. Oh, they don't get a recorded thing. Yeah, this is North America. Gotta figure out what to do. We could trade agreement. We're sandwiched between. I don't know why there's no audio here. I guess I just don't have it. Let's see what kind. Let's see. Archers, melee, roads. Yeah, we're sandwiched between the British and the Americans here. Oh, that's cool. They changed the. Let's see how we govern. I don't know why some of these things are hidden. Who can I do a diplomacy with? The other native nations don't like me? What? No. We have to do the Tecumseh thing. Oh, this isn't good. Why are we all fighting each other? Well, at least, we're an ally of the British for now. I mean, look, half of the Haudenosaunee Confederacy, was it the Oneida and was it the Tuscarora side with the U.S., and the other four, the Mohawk and the others, side with the British. They're not showing this here. Why are all the native nations at war? What the heck? That's dumb. Let's see. They can get lancers. Get some better infantry. Let's see. How can I get better troops? I mean, it's pretty, romantic. What's the word I'm looking for? It's not polite to say, but I guess kind of noble, savage, which isn't very polite. Oh, man. You know what? Okay, so this is the Iroquois, the Haudenosaunee. And maybe I'll do a campaign of this. Let me know. But I kind of want to see what happens if you play as the Pueblo. Load. Come on. Warpath campaign. Yeah, the Pueblo. Start. Because I know, they were able to kick out the Spanish. And obviously there's no audio here either. This is convincing me to finally try the Warpath campaigns here. Excuse me. Let's see how sort of damage I could do. Well, first, what's the diplomacy?
This panel enables you
Oh,
to
everyone
use
hates me.
diplomatic
Okay.
relations.
Oh, man.
Select a nation by clicking on their flag.
Everyone.
Their allies,
All the native
enemies,
peoples want me
protectorates,
dead.
and trading partners.
Except the guys in the
are displayed
plains. Let's see what my army looks like.
Right-click to move your army to any part of the
Archers.
highlighted area. Attack by right-clicking on a rival's army or city.
I know, this is all about, building up your empire. It's all gameplay rule stuff. I mean, at least they try. Who am I at war with again? Oh, I'm just at war with the Spanish. Okay. Objectives. Take these 3 regions. I eventually get firearms. I mean, I don't know. This probably isn't the best, but at least it's something. And I kind of want to explore it. And I guess, I've mainly focused on playing like the Prussians and the French and the Russians. But what's great about Empire Total War is it's still, countries from all over the world. Europe and Asia. Now, I should probably show you something. And this is what makes Empire Total War so interesting. And this is kind of the story of the 21st century. Because people were not happy with Empire Total War when it came out. So they decided to mod it. They change it around. They add in a lot of stuff. And there are a lot of mods that try to make it better, including focusing more on non-European nations. It's a whole thing. I gotta look into it more. But that's Empire Total War. But let me show you something a little different. This is American Conquest. This game is from a Ukrainian company called GSC Game World. They're mainly known for what's called the Stalker series. It just had a new entry. But I know that this is the first game from them I heard about called American Conquest. But they're also known for, let's scroll down, the Cossack series. This is a spin-off off of it. And it's perhaps interesting to compare what these Ukrainian guys do to what the British at Creative Assembly are doing. Don't worry about that. It's a very old game. It's very finicky. So, campaigns. Yeah, you've got, start with Columbus, Pizarro, the 7 Years' War, both sides, Tecumseh's War, both sides, that's interesting, and the War of Independence, both sides. What do they say about Columbus? Let's hear it.
On the 3rd of August, 1492, an expedition of 3 ships left the port of Palos, fully equipped to search for a seaway to India. The expedition was led by Christopher Columbus, a man destined to go down in history as the discoverer of a continent previously unknown to the Europeans. The most striking fact of his voyage, however, is that Columbus was not actually seeking to discover new lands. He was looking for a sea route to the distant country of India, a land whose fabulous riches had been the subject of many a myth, which had kindled the fire of greed in the eyes of all men, regardless of whether or not they had previously been prone to avarice. It was from India that Columbus was to bring his patrons much gold, silver, spice, and slaves, to repay them hundredfold for the expenses of the voyage. Much was invested into the expedition. Spanish Queen Isabella even had to pawn her diamond crown to cover the cost of the venture. The Spaniards had one major rival, King John II of Portugal, who was well aware of the impracticability of the plan Columbus had made. He knew the Spanish squadron would never reach India, but he was equally sure that the Genoese would discover hitherto unexplored lands in the west, and that these lands would for some time draw the court's attention away from searching for a route to India, which would buy him some time in the race for fabulous riches from overseas. Before turning to the Spanish crown, Columbus had already sought support from the Portuguese and been rejected. The fact was that the Portuguese king had already heard of America's existence, which had been testified to in numerous records of travels and explorations, and of possible new lands in the western region of the Atlantic as early as 1470. Some parts of America's Atlantic coast were marked on maps which a Portuguese navigator had compiled in 1452. After 1452, a large number of royal patents were issued to captains for some unknown islands in the Atlantic, authorizing them to seek out these lands and settle there. The Spanish crown was disturbed by the Portuguese behavior. From 1488 to 1495, Spanish spies in Lisbon were constantly sending reports to their rulers about Portuguese vessels secretly sailing off to the west. It was time to act. On the 12th of August, 1492, a fair wind carried Columbus's squadron out of the harbor, and he set a course for the American coast. On October 11th, he approached one of the isles in the Bahaman archipelago. Christopher Columbus raised the Spanish flag and declared the island to be located at the gates of India and the property of their royal majesties Isabella and Ferdinand. The details of the conquest were taken down by the expedition's notary, Rodrigo de Escobedo, in a document that declared the native islanders to be Castilian subjects. Columbus's ships then began to explore the shores of the New World, unaware of the dangers awaiting them at every turn. At Christmas, the flagship Santa Maria was wrecked on a coral reef. The explorers decided to set up a colony on the nearest island. On January the 4th, Columbus left 38 people behind, with a stock of weapons and food in the new colony they had named Navidad, Christmas, and set sail for Spain. On March the 4th, the explorers stood before King John II, who welcomed Columbus with open arms and affirmed his own rights to the New World. King John later offered to discuss the rights to the newly discovered lands, and a treaty was drawn up in 1494, whereby the demarcation line was to follow the meridian 370 leagues west of the Cape Verde Islands. According to the agreement, Brazil went to Portugal. Pope Alexander VI divided the whole New World and its countries, discovered or not, between two monarchs, two states actively patronized by the Roman Church, Spain and Portugal. Now it's high time other European states laid claim to the New World and stood up for their rights with the power of their guns. The division of the world continues.
That's certainly not what would perfectly fit the 1776 Commission. So there's a bit of the gameplay. See, the gameplay in this one specifically is very interesting. Very different from other games in the genre. Like, you're starting with a combat building. You're on the island and you're going to be shooting a lot of people. You built that fort, and then everyone's coming in, trying to, hey, what's this fort doing here? You load your men in the fort. What's interesting is then you use your settlers, oh, see, now you got a fort. That's the first thing you build in this one. But you don't build new workers. You build them at these houses, and that's a very different gameplay loop than other games in the genre. And I'll show you one of those later. And this is all just an introduction as well. Oh, no, there we go. Meeting guys River, go in the fort. And through the fort, I built more guys, and they still have guns somehow. But that is the intro to gameplay in American Conquest. But I thought I would show you. We could go through all of these. Maybe I'll go through. Why don't I just show you what they say about the War of Independence?
In 1765, the British Parliament passed the Stamp Act, a revenue law that levied a tax on all trade deals. The attempt to introduce the tax provoked discontent and disturbances among the inhabitants of Boston and other colonial towns. Fierce resistance to the tax forced the British government to repeal the Stamp Act. However, shortly after, the Parliament imposed new duties and sent regular troops to discourage any rebellion. This led to the famous Boston Massacre, where British troops fired on the crowd, killing several men. In 1773, British ships delivered a huge shipment of tea to Boston. This time, the Parliament had abolished the duty on tea imported to America, but had left a small tax in place. The colonists, however, continued to refuse the rights of the Parliament to tax them. A group of Bostonians, disguised as Native Americans, boarded the vessels and emptied the tea into Boston Harbor. The locals called this event the Boston Tea Party. As punishment, the British government ruled that Boston Harbor be closed for trade, causing resentment and rebellion in 13 British colonies. The Boston Tea Party was followed by unrest. In May 1775, The Second Continental Congress was held, and the representatives sent the king one last plea, which became known as the Olive Branch Petition. They later ruled to form an American army and appointed 43-year-old George Washington as its commander-in-chief. In response, the king declared the colonies to be in a state of rebellion and ordered the revolt to be suppressed. The war began with a skirmish between the Lexington farmers and British troops. A squad of 700 entered Lexington to face the badly organized rows of militiamen. There were less than 70 of them, and a British officer offered to let them go home before it was too late. But a shot provoked the British into firing a volley, which killed 8 and injured 10 colonists. By noon, they had entered Concord. Meanwhile, news of the outrage in Lexington had spread around the neighborhood. On their way back to Boston, the British were ceaselessly enfiladed by the rebels who lay ambushes along the road. As a result, the Concord campaign cost the lives of 273 British and 95 Americans.
So let's see how this plays out. There we go. Into a lot of detail for a few games in the previous video. This one's going to be a bit more rapid fire. Let's get a couple out of the way first. This game, American Patriots, it's just a hex and counter game, nothing really special. Assassin's Creed 3. The Assassin's Creed series, it's all about stealth. You're an assassin. You have to, take out people and not be seen. And I'll be honest with you, I'm not a fan of it. It's not even available on the Steam store. Oh, wow. How even... Okay, I don't understand this. All right, let's go back. So that was Assassin's Creed 3, which I can't even play anymore. Europa Universalis. Let me just show you a little bit of this, which I've never really gotten into. But a lot of people talk about this series, Europa Universalis. And the publisher, Paradox Interactive from Sweden, they have a bunch of different series. And this one covers the early modern period, from like the 1300s to 1821. Although it usually doesn't go that far. It's taking forever to load. Come on. Oh, no. Let me just get to the game. Come on, shut up. Play. You know what? No, I'm not going to bother with this. Cancel. I'm not going to bother with Europa Universalis right now. Paradox, they have their own way of doing things. Let me show you something very interesting, though. 1775 Rebellion. This one's much simpler. And it's also available as a board game from Academy Games. Standard. So it's a board game. You build your armies. And it's all about taking colonies. But what's interesting is there's more of a focus on loyalism, because Academy Games is actually a Canadian company. So there's a bunch of different factions. You've got, the American Patriots and the militia. You've got the British Army, as well as Loyalist militia. You've got native peoples who you can shoomp up for your side by sending your troops in. And then you've got the French and the Hessians who you can add into your armies. And the cards show lots of fun little details. This is probably a good thing to show to a class of students, because you get the big picture, and it shows the colonies with their land grants to the Mississippi River. Now here's a big one, Age of Empires 3. Again, it was Age of Empires, especially Age of Empires 2, that really helped this boom of history games. And so they did a sequel, set in the early modern period. And this remake, kind of, which was released, I think, 2017, kind of shows how culture changed from 2005, when it was first produced, to now. Wait for it to load. It's very similar to Empire Total War, but this is a recent re-release, changing things around. They've even got an esports league. And I think this is much more popular in Central and Eastern Europe than Age of Empires 2 is. And you might want to compare this to Empire Total War. Very similar. The term is a 4X strategy game. Explore, expand, exploit, exterminate. Yeah, exterminate doesn't sound very nice, does it? But Age of Empires plays much more like American Conquest than Empire Total War. You got some samurai in there, combining different eras. It's all just conquest. It's not morality. So, this game's very different from the first two Age of Empires, because you get a home city that changes the way you play. There are campaigns, and this is just Patriot Myth stuff on steroids. Go back. The Haudenosaunee. This is probably what interests a lot of people, to call them the Haudenosaunee instead of the Iroquois. And this shows the Asian powers, Japan, China, and India. So they added those to the game. But let's... and historical battles. They've got a wide variety. There's DLC for African countries, as well as the US and Mexico. Very much the early modern period. And now, to skirmish. Here we go, skirmish. So you can see the Aztecs, British, Chinese, Dutch, the Ethiopians, Haudenosaunee. That's what really got that name in. And there's some more. There's really an attempt to capture the whole world again. I'm not going to show you gameplay, though, unless you really want to see it. So that's Age of Empires 3. Let me show you, so this is obviously much more recent, so it shows more of the contemporary approaches to this period. But something that's more traditional is Rise of Nations. This came out in around 2005. So the mid-2000s was like the golden age of these sorts of games. And Rise of Nations covers... it's like Civilization. It covers all these different periods of history. And it's kind of like Age of Empires as well. Oh, there we go. Big, huge games. Yeah, they're gone. In Microsoft. Here we go. The intro video. And again, this is all of world history from the ancients to the moderns. Building the ancient monuments. Greeks. I mean, personally, I gave a lot of my high school and even college years to this stuff. Probably more than I should have. But it gives a particular perspective. And if you're dealing with students, these might be useful tools, or at least a starting point to get them into looking at history. But of course, it has its own limits. Straight to World War I. And the information age, satellites and all that. All right, let's actually get to the gameplay. So, Conquer the World campaigns. So you got all these different, there's like what, a bunch of different campaigns where you lead your country. And here's the one we're primarily interested in, the New World. You've got Alexander the Great, Napoleon, the Cold War, which is interesting. But let's look at the New World. Start a new campaign. You can play as native nations, European nations, or Americans. And they get like all these advantages. They were introduced in an expansion pack. They weren't in the original, the vanilla version of the game. But
you've come to this new world and have made it a home for your people. You would prefer it to be a peaceful one, but peace is a luxury your enemies will not permit. The native tribes grow increasingly angry at your presence, while your homeland imposes ever-increasing taxes and other burdens. Independence is your only choice, and to ensure your freedom, you must now conquer the world.
Right. In the campaign. So here are the Americas. Everyone's got different missions. And this is how you contextualize individual battles, where you're trying to build a civilization. It's very different from American Conquest or Age of Empires 3, in that it's more interesting economically, whereas the military isn't as exciting. But here's the map. We gotta, eat up a lot of the map. And we're a vassal of the British who hold Quebec. Yeah, this isn't very historically accurate. But you got the Iroquois, the Haudenosaunee, you've got the Aztecs, you got the Maya. So now what I want to show you, quick, is a solo game called a quick battle. You can see just how many civilizations there are. Aztecs, Bantu, British. And let's see, Americans get all these advantages. They're kind of a bit unbalanced. But there was at least an attempt to really focus on, lots of different countries throughout the world, different nations, rise of nations. And let's see, I want to show you, hold on, how do I customize? Custom, here we go. And so there's all these different eras, from the ancients to the moderns, so that's kind of cool. So that is Rise of Nations. But I want to show you something very interesting in comparison. And that is Civilization 4. Civilization is now on 7 entries. But this one from the early 2000s, which you can get for reasonably cheap. Let it load. Let's see, what is this intro video? This is the first one to introduce religion. I think it's one of the best religion systems in the series. This is the whole world. You can pick your civilization. It's not just blood and conquest. You can go into space. You can get recognized at the UN. Lead world culture. So we're one world. We all like to fight for control of the world. The music actually won an award. There's the Romans and the Greeks. Their whole thing. Yeah, I guess there's an ideology behind all this. It's in a way globalist, because you can be anybody. But there's also, but everyone just fights each other. Or maybe sometimes they work together. But it's the idea of the state as an entity that fights other states. Very Clausewitzian. And it's ancient stuff. To see all the different videos of the different games, just to give you an idea of what they want you to do. And space, you go into space. From ancients to space. Okay. But here's what I want to show you. And it's only in the vanilla version of Civ 4, not any of the expansions. You have the American Revolution in there. It's a mod. The expansions don't have the mod, which is weird. You can play Americans under George Washington, and Frederick the Great is the model of George III. But here's what's interesting. Let it load. There we go. In a city on a hill. It's international because you got the French and Spanish in there. And here's what American territory looks like. The British got a few bases all over. Obviously taking Boston, Maine, but their main base of power is in Quebec. But, it's not impossible odds, just challenging odds. Main menu. But now let's see from the other side. Hamrev. What they say about them. And unfortunately, the native nations aren't depicted at all. There we go. There's the opening battles. Here's a bit of gameplay. There we go. Gonna read through this. Okay. So you see you've got these kind of, they're spread out all over. So it's not just like easy pickings. You got you guys in Boston, you've got your ships. Who's in the transport? And then you've got transports. So, you know, it's a near-run thing as opposed to inevitable or impossible. And yeah, the native nations aren't represented at all. Just some forts. So that's how Civ 4 depicts the American Revolution. And let's see, there's one more. Ah, yes. One more thing I want to show you. This is, it's called Prime and Load, 1776. Now, this is very different from everything else I've shown you. It's not a strategy game. It's a shooter. Yeah, this studio didn't really, maybe they've done other things. But instead of leading a nation or an army, you control one guy. It's like a custom soldier. Here. Doesn't give you a lot of options, but there we go. See, different ethnicities. Isn't that nice? Asian. All different ethnicities. Let me go back because I want to show you something. Now, there aren't any games like this, but load. And you pick your side. You can pick your regiment, so that's kind of neat. And it shows you the different colors of the different regiments. And see, I thought it would show, you know, some of the so they got Congress's own 2nd Canadian. You've got infantry, cav. See, I thought they'd have the Rhode Island regiment, but they didn't, unfortunately. And then you got artillery. Oh, back. Both sides, all the different units. You got loyalists. I thought they'd have like the Ethiopian regiment, you know, the Liberty of Slaves one that Lord Dunmore formed. I thought they'd have that, but they did not. Which is unfortunate. These are light infantry and cav, arty, back, and then you've also got the French, different French regiments. I don't want that one. Royal Sudan. No cav. Ah, here we get the Saint-Domingue regiment. Back. And then you've got the German ones. Different colors. Back. And yeah, this game didn't really go anywhere. It was where you command a single soldier. And there are other games in this genre that are much more successful. Holdfast, which is Napoleonic in World War I, and War of Rights, which is the American Civil War. There's also Sid Meier's Colonization, which I've never even really played. But this is generally how the American Revolution is depicted in gaming. It's a lot of Patriot Myth stuff, but if you know where to look, especially with these guys, GSC Game World from Ukraine, and what this shows is people do want to get beyond the Patriot Myth. They do want to get beyond the rah-rah nationalism stuff. And it's only small studios that are willing to do it, whereas the bigger studios kind of aren't. And that's how the American Revolution is depicted.